I sit at my parents' polished oak dining table, the one that's witnessed 34 years of Brennan family politics. Sunlight pours through leaded glass windows, catching dust motes that dance above the antique sideboard. The light hits differently here than anywhere else, warm amber that makes even my father's criticism seem temporarily gilded. More roast, Callie? Mom passes the silver serving platter before I answer. Her practiced smile never reaches her eyes. The pearls at her throat catch the light as she turns toward Wyatt. Darling, tell everyone your news again. My brother straightens his collar, the pale blue perfectly matching the country club napkins Mom insisted on using. His watch glints, a graduation gift from Dad that cost more than my first car. Rebecca and I are officially engaged. Wyatt beams, his teeth unnaturally white against his carefully maintained tan. Her parents are thrilled. Old Philadelphia family, you know. What wonderful news! Dad raises his crystal water glass. His eyes slid toward me for the briefest moment in assessment I've felt since childhood. To proper families and proper futures. I take a small sip of water, my throat suddenly dries. Congratulations, Wyatt. The clock in the hallway chimes 4 times. This house, grandmother's house, keeps perfect time despite its age. Like her, it stands solid against trends and tantrums. The curved archways and original hardwood floors whisper stories of 5 generations. Stories these people seated around me never bothered to hear. Maria, you can clear the plates now. Mom tells the housekeeper, who appears silently at her elbow. I smooth the simple linen dress against my knees. Nothing flashy, but well-made, a stark contrast to Mom's designer ensemble and the tennis bracelet that clicks against her plate whenever she moves. Dad's golf tan complements his burgundy sweater, the uniform of a man who measures success by membership cards. Coffee arrives in grandmother's Wedgwood cups. The blue flowers around the rim always reminded me of her eyes, gentle but seeing everything. The china clinks against saucers, marking time until whatever's coming next. Wyatt clears his throat. Actually, there's something else we wanted to discuss today. Mom and Dad exchange glances so practiced they barely qualify as communication anymore. Yes, Dad sets down his cup with precision. We've been thinking about the future of this property. The air changes. Temperature drops a few degrees despite the sunshine. I feel it before I understand it, the way prey senses danger before identifying its source. The thing is, Callie, Dad slides a manila folder across the polished wood toward me. With Wyatt starting a family, we've been discussing the best use of family assets. I don't touch the folder. Assets? Legal documents, Dad says, tapping the folder with one manicured finger. For transferring your grandmother's house to the family trust. My coffee turns bitter on my tongue. Transferring my house? The family house, Mom corrects smoothly. It was always meant to be the Brennan family home for generations, not a single person's project. Wyatt needs a real home to raise a family, Dad continues, as though I hadn't spoken. You've had 7 years here already. 7 years. As if caring for grandmother during her final days was a vacation. As if returning home with my marketing career in ashes at 27 was some kind of victory lap. I inherited this house, I say quietly. Grandmother left it to me specifically. Which was a lovely sentiment. Mom interjects, stirring another sugar cube into her coffee. But practically speaking, Wyatt has real prospects now. A fiancé from a good family. Future grandchildren. The real message hangs unspoken, unlike you. Maybe you can find something near where Lottie lives. Mom suggests, mentioning my grandmother's former housekeeper with barely concealed distaste. Those apartments near the east side seem suitable for your situation. The realization hits me with physical force. They've planned this, coordinated this ambush around Wyatt's announcement. My family is sitting in my dining room, in my grandmother's chairs, plotting to take the home she entrusted to me. I feel heat rising in my chest, but my face remains carefully neutral, a skill honed through decades of Brennan Sunday dinners. I reach for the folder, my fingers steady despite the storm inside me. I'll need to review these, I say, my voice surprisingly level. Dad leans back, satisfied. Of course, it's just a formality. The trust lawyer can handle everything by the end of the month. The confidence in his voice, the absolute certainty I'll comply nearly breaks my composure. I stand, tucking the folder under my arm. I should get going. I have some work to finish tonight. I don't specify what kind of work. They've never asked. Don't overthink this, Callie, Wyatt says, his tone somewhere between condescending and concerned. It's what's best for the family. I nod once, not trusting myself to speak further. The walk to the front door feels longer than usual, each step on the 100-year-old hardwood a reminder of what they want to take from me. Later that night, in my home office, I opened my laptop. The screen illuminates my face in the gathering darkness. I type a short, encrypted email to an address I've used only twice before. Trigger documents. 9:15 a.m. tomorrow. I hit send and close the computer. In the quiet of the house, I hear grandmother's antique clock chiming the hour. Time to make choices that can't be unmade. Next morning, the doorbell chimes at precisely 9:17 a.m. I smooth my charcoal pencil skirt and adjust the cream silk blouse I reserved for closing deals. Through leaded glass, I spot Thema chaotic cluster on my porch. Dad's silver BMW sits askew in the driveway, one tire on the lawn. He always criticized me for not manicuring properly. I open the door before they knock again. Good morning. My voice carries the calm of someone who has rehearsed this moment for years. Please come in. Dad barrels past me, his burgundy golf sweater from yesterday replaced by a rumpled button-down. What is the meaning of this? Cloverbank Mortgage called me at 7:30. Behind him, Mom clutches her designer handbag like a shield. Her pearl earrings don't match her necklace a detail, so unlike her, it speaks volumes. Wyatt hovers at the threshold, his usually perfect hair uncombed, his eyes darting around as if seeing the house for the first time. Coffee? I gesture toward the dining room. The antique table now hosts my laptop, a neat stack of folders, and 3 leather portfolios embossed with BRH in gold. We have a lot to discuss. Discuss? Dad's voice rises. Cloverbank says you own this house through some company, that there's no mortgage to transfer. Brennan Revival Holdings. I walk past them expecting them to follow. They do. My company. Please sit. They settled into the chairs they occupied yesterday. The symmetry isn't lost on me. Mom's hands shake slightly as she arranges herself. What game are you playing, Callie? Wyatt finds his voice, though it lacks yesterday's confidence. I turn my laptop toward them. The dashboard gleams with property addresses, value assessments, and ROI calculations. This isn't a game, it's a business. My business. With 3 keystrokes, the screen shifts to a scrolling portfolio: apartment buildings, commercial properties, historic homes, and vacant lots transformed into revenue-generating investments. 26 properties. I let the number hang in the air, currently valued at approximately $4.7 million. Dad's banker eyes widened, calculating in real time. Mom's mouth opens but produces no sound. Wyatt leans forward, scanning the addresses until recognition flashes across his face. That's... He stabs a finger at the screen. That's our building. Hancock Plaza. Your firm's lease expires in 2 months. I meet his gaze evenly. Davidson Partners has expressed interest in the space. They're willing to pay 12% above market. Dad's face flushes crimson. This is absurd. You can't possibly own the building where your son works? The one you advised me on was a foolish investment at the chamber dinner last year? I retrieve a folder and slide it across the polished wooden echo of his gesture yesterday. The same building you told the Kensington Group would be a maintenance nightmare when you heard I was considering properties downtown. The silence stretches between us like a taut wire. You've been. Mom struggles to find words appropriate for her country club vocabulary. Playing house caretaker while secretly buying property? Not secretly, privately. I opened another folder. Remember when I asked to discuss business at Thanksgiving 3 years ago? You suggested I focus on finding a nice man who knows about these things. When I mentioned real estate at Christmas, you changed the subject to Wyatt's promotion. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimes the half hour. 10 chimes until I need to be downtown. Who would loan you money for all this? Dad's banker brain is still searching for the flaw in my foundation. The telephone interrupts with perfect timing. I press the speaker button. Morning, Eleanor. You're on with my family. Good morning, Callie. Eleanor Hayes' voice fills the room crisp, professional, formidable. I have the updated lease agreements ready. Shall I review the terms? Please. Mom's face drains of color as Eleanor details the formal lease agreement for the family home. $2,650 monthly, 2-year minimum term, security deposit required. This is outrageous. Dad stands abruptly. I'll contest this. Our family lawyers will. You'll need new lawyers. I close the folder calmly. I bought out Martindale and Reed last year. They're part of my business holdings now. His mouth opens and closes without sound. For the first time in my life, Douglas Brennan has no words. Wyatt finds his voice first. How did you manage all this? Where did you get the capital? Perhaps you should have asked that question years ago. I turn slightly. Lottie, would you mind joining us? Lottie Green steps in from the kitchen, her silver hair caught in morning sunlight. At 76, she stands straighter than my mother ever has. The woman they've always referred to as the housekeeper holds a leather portfolio identical to mine. Miss Lottie was grandmother's silent partner in 3 rental properties. I explain. When you all were too busy to visit, she taught me what grandmother had taught her, how to see value where others saw only surfaces. Mom's shoulders stiffen at the revelation. Another piece of family mythology crumbling. The lease agreements need signatures by Friday. I stand, signaling the end of our meeting. My downtown office can handle the paperwork if you'd prefer not to return here. Dad's face darkens with the threat of an explosion. You can't possibly expect. I expect exactly what you've always expected, Dad. Business is business. I gather my laptop. Family is family. Yesterday you decided which mattered more. Wyatt stares at the property list, lingering on his firm's address. The power shift registers in his eyes, the first authentic emotion I've seen from him in years. I walk them to the door, professional courtesy in every step. As they file out in stunned silence, I call after them. Oh, and Wyatt? Congratulations again on your engagement. I close the door on their retreating figures and lean against it, allowing myself 5 seconds of vulnerability before straightening. Through the window, I watch Dad's BMW back carefully off my lawn, as if only now realizing he's on someone else's property. Lottie places a weathered hand on my shoulder. Your grandmother would be proud, child. The validation I never received from my family washes over me, warm and genuine. But the day is young and I have an empire to run. On Wednesday that week, the country club of Grand Rapids rises like a fortress on manicured grounds, its red brick exterior housing generations of handshakes that built this city. I park my Volvo Practical, paid off beside Dad's gleaming Lexus and Wyatt's leased BMW. The contrast isn't lost on me. Inside, the scent of lemon polish and old money hangs in the air. Portrait paintings of founding members stare down from walnut-paneled walls, their eyes following me across the carpet. Dad chose this battlefield deliberately. Here, surrounded by the symbols of his success, he believes I'll crumble. He waits at his regular table near the window, back straight, silver hair perfectly combed. Mom sits beside him, fingers twisting her pearl necklace. Wyatt paces nearby, phone pressed to his ear, voice low but urgent. Callie. Dad rises slightly when I approach, a gesture of courtesy rather than respect. We appreciate you coming. I slide into the leather chair across from them. Your message mentioned an emergency. Wyatt ends his call and joins us, collar unbuttoned, a thin sheen of sweat on his forehead. Nice of you to make time in your busy schedule. Douglas, please. Mom touches Dad's sleeve as a waiter approaches. Let's order first. Just coffee. My voice carries more authority than it would have a month ago. The waiter nods and retreats. Dad leans forward, lowering his voice. This situation has gone far enough, Callie. Your mother hasn't slept in days. This will kill her, you understand? Mom dabs at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. My health isn't the issue, I say, accepting the coffee placed before me. Neither is Mom's sleep schedule. Listen to yourself. Wyatt's voice rises enough that heads turn at nearby tables. He catches himself, leans in. Do you understand what you've done? Mackenzie Palmer canceled our dinner last night, said they weren't comfortable socializing until our family matters were resolved. The name registers Wyatt's biggest client prospect. I taste victory, bitter and sweet on my tongue. And just this morning, Dad continues, Bill Harrington called me personally. Wanted to know if there was trouble with the Brennan finances since you've apparently been meeting with his investment group. I sip my coffee, letting the silence stretch. Bill's considering financing my next 3 properties. This is insanity. Dad slams his palm on the table, rattling the china. Where did you even get your initial capital? Who would loan money to a woman with no banking connections? I finished for him. FHA loans on the first 2 properties. Private equity from investors who believed in preservation. Then I reinvested every penny of profit. Mom shakes her head. If you needed money, you should have come to us. I needed respect more than money. Wyatt snorts. Is that what this is about? Some childhood grudge because we didn't praise your finger paintings enough? No, I meet his gaze steadily. It's about sitting at the dinner table for 30 years listening to you dismiss everything I cared about while you plotted to take my home. Your home? Dad's face flushes red. That house has been in our family for 5 generations. And grandmother left it to me. Not the family's trust. Not Wyatt. Me. The waiter approaches with a coffee carafe. Dad waves him away with barely contained fury. I've spoken with 3 different attorneys, he says once we're alone again. There are ways to challenge an inheritance when the beneficiary clearly lacks. My attorney will be happy to speak with your 4th lawyer. I place my napkin on the table. Though you might have trouble finding one locally. Eleanor Hayes has connections with most firms in the area. Mom gasps. Eleanor? From the foundation board? She's quite effective. You recommended her yourself at a garden party once. Said she was terrifyingly thorough if I recall correctly. Wyatt's phone buzzes. He glances at it and his face drains of color. This is Brad Thompson. He looks up at me. He's canceling our lease renewal meeting. Davidson Partners made a competitive offer for that space. I don't mention that I've already rejected it. Let him sweat a little longer. You can't do this. Dad's voice drops to a dangerous whisper. I've called in favors at Michigan First. They're reviewing your loan portfolio. I refinanced through Clover Bank 6 months ago. I stand, smoothing my skirt. Dad, your banking connections can't touch me anymore. Then I'll make sure everyone in our circle knows exactly what kind of daughter you've become. Mom's voice trembles with anger or fear, perhaps both. They already know. I shoulder my bag. Lottie ran into you at Kingma's Market yesterday. Quite a scene from what I heard. Mom's cheeks flame. That woman had no right to speak to me that way. That woman helped me secure my first investment property while you were telling the Hendersons I was finding myself after a nervous breakdown. Callie, Wyatt stands, desperation replacing anger. Be reasonable. We can work something out. We already have. I place my business card on the table. The family home lease agreement expires Friday. I'll need your decision by then. Dad pushes the card away. This isn't over. It is. I turn to leave, then pause. Oh, and Wyatt? I heard rumors about restructuring at Lakewood Partners. Might want to update your resume. The sunlight outside feels cleansing after the stifling club atmosphere. I drive straight to Oak Hill Cemetery, where rows of granite monuments march across the hillside. Grandmother's grave sits beneath a maple tree, simple and elegant like her. I place fresh gardenias beside her name, the scent filling the spring air. They never saw it coming, I whisper, touching the cool stone. Just like you said. Her voice echoes in my memory. They'll never see your worth until you own it yourself, Calliope. Tears come suddenly, not from pain but release. For years I'd hidden my success, seeking approval that never came. Now I stand in the sunlight, owning both my accomplishments and their consequences. My phone buzzes with a text from Eleanor. Douglas hired Sampson's firm, already called to discuss settlement options. I smile through my tears. Tomorrow I'll sign the lease for my new downtown office above Madcap Coffee. The business plan for the River District revitalization sits ready in my briefcase. 6 years of quiet work are finally bearing fruit. Across town, Wyatt faces restructuring rumors. Dad discovers his banking favors have limits. Mom learns that social standing is as fragile as crystal. I placed my hand on grandmother's headstone one last time. I'm ready for whatever comes next. As I walk back to my car, my phone rings. It's Wyatt. I let it go to voicemail. Some conversations can wait until the ground beneath us all has finished shifting. A month later, at the office, the glossy business card between my fingers reads, Wyatt Brennan, former senior account executive. Former. Such a small word to mark such a seismic shift. I pin it to my office corkboard with deliberate care, next to the newspaper clipping from last week featuring my latest downtown restoration project. He called again this morning, Eleanor says, setting a fresh coffee on my desk. My attorney's silver hair catches the morning light streaming through the tall windows of my downtown office. Third time this week. Let me guess, more threats about family reputation? Eleanor's laugh comes quick and genuine. Quite the opposite. He wanted to know if you'd be willing to provide a reference. The coffee scalds my tongue. I set it down too quickly, sloshing liquid onto the quarterly reports. Wyatt Brennan golden child, heir apparent, country club darling needs my reference. His company cited family complications in the termination paperwork. Eleanor continues, dabbing at the spilled coffee with a handkerchief. Apparently, uncertainty about their building lease created shareholder concern. The building I now own. Did you know, I say, turning to the window overlooking Main Street, that Dad stopped golfing at Lakeview Country Club? Membership dues suddenly became unreasonable. The world tilts on unexpected axes, doesn't it? Outside, workers install the new sign on the Victorian building across the street, my newest acquisition. The 5th property I've purchased since that Sunday dinner 1 month ago. Each transaction is another brick in a wall between my past and future. Francine called Lottie yesterday, Eleanor mentions, settling into the leather chair opposite my desk. Apparently your mother's bridge club has dwindled to just her and Margaret Phillips. The one whose husband owns half the car dealerships in town? The very same, though I hear she only showed up to ask about investing in your next property. A laugh bubbles up from somewhere deep inside me, surprising us both. Not malicious, just genuine amusement at life's strange symmetry. For years, I was the family disappointment. Now I'm the sole Brennan with financial stability. 2 more mortgage applications came through this morning. Eleanor says, sliding folders across my polished desk. Both historic properties on Cherry Street. The bank approval was unusually swift. The same bank where Dad once wielded influence like a scepter. The same loan officers who once dismissed my business plan now expedite my paperwork. Did you see this? I handed Eleanor yesterday's newspaper, folded to a quarter-page spread about community revitalization. My photo appears beneath the headline. Local entrepreneur preserves city's architectural heritage. Your grandmother would have loved this, Eleanor says softly. She knew before I did. I touch the vintage watch on my wrist. She left me the house because she saw what they couldn't. My phone buzzes with a text from Lottie. Your father is at the doctor's office. Blood pressure concerns. Don't worry, Helen from the pharmacy keeps me updated. Small towns have their advantages. News travels without effort, carrying on currents of coffee shop conversations and pharmacy whispers. Another text follows immediately. Francine tried joining the Historical Society board. They suggested donor status instead. The society where I've been treasurer for 3 years. I should feel vindicated, triumphant. Instead, something unexpectedly tender unfolds in my chest, not quite pity, not quite compassion, but something adjacent to both. Mrs. Coopersmith called, Eleanor mentions, gathering her notes. Wants advice about her daughter's real estate classes. The same Mrs. Coopersmith who told me investing in those old buildings was foolish at last year's chamber dinner? People recognize success when they see it. Eleanor stands, straightening her impeccable suit, just like they recognize failure. After she leaves, I sit alone in the quiet of my office. The antique grandfather clock in the corner, salvaged from a condemned hotel, ticks away minutes in the same measured cadence as the one in grandmother's hallway. My hallway now. I don't call Dad about his blood pressure. I don't text Mom about her social standing. I don't reach out to Wyatt about his job search. Their problems aren't mine to solve, just as my success wasn't theirs to claim. Yet I don't block their numbers either. The afternoon light shifts, painting gold rectangles across my desk calendar. 3 properties under contract, 2 renovation projects nearing completion. One community foundation grant application pending for the historic theater restoration. My empire built not on revenge but on vision. My success is measured not by their downfall but by my creation. The receptionist buzzes an hour later. Miss Brennan, your brother is here. My finger hovers over the intercom button, a heartbeat of hesitation. Send him in. Wyatt looks different. Smaller somehow, without the protective shell of family expectations. His collar sits slightly crooked, his eyes lacking their usual confidence. I've been waiting downstairs for almost an hour, he says, remaining standing even when I gesture toward a chair. Nice coffee shop. One of my tenants. Right. He shoves his hands into his pockets. Of course. The silence between us has weight, decades of competition compressed into molecules of air. I underestimated you, he finally says, each word costing him visibly. We all did. For the first time in our relationship, I don't interrupt. Don't defend, don't explain. I simply listen as the grandfather clock marks time between us, each tick a tiny monument to change. Thursday that week, I spotted them the moment I walked into Giovanni's my parents sitting at a corner table beneath vintage photographs of the Italian coast. The restaurant's amber lighting casts a forgiving glow over Mom's worried expression and Dad's too stiff posture. Not a chance meeting. Their Mercedes parked right next to my usual spot confirms what I already knew. An ambush disguised as reconciliation. Mom waves, her bracelet catching the light. I nod to the hostess and walk toward them, my heels clicking against the terracotta tiles. Callie, Mom rises, arms extended for an embrace that feels rehearsed. What a wonderful surprise. Is it? I settle into the chair across from them, placing my bag beside me. Your car is parked next to my regular spot. Dad clears his throat, adjusting his collar. Always observant. The waiter arrives with water and takes our drink orders. I request a Cabernet while Mom orders her usual Chardonnay. Dad sticks with sparkling water. Doctor's orders for his blood pressure, no doubt. You look well, Mom says, studying my face. That cream blouse is lovely with your coloring. I thank her, though we both know this conversation isn't about fashion. Beneath the table, I notice Dad's fingers drumming against his thigh, his telltale sign of rehearsed talking points waiting to be delivered. We've been doing some thinking. Dad begins once our drinks arrive. He leans forward, his voice dropping to that authoritative banker's tone that closed thousands of deals. About family legacy. About forgiveness. Douglas. Mom touches his arm, her eyes suddenly wet with tears. Let me. She turns to me, voice quavering. Callie, we're not getting any younger. Family should stick together, especially at our age. I take a slow sip of wine, letting the silence stretch between us. Giovanni's fills with the sounds of other diners' forks against plates, genuine laughter, conversations without agendas. Mom, Dad, I place my glass down carefully. I appreciate you reaching out, I do. Dad nods, relief washing over his features. Too soon. But I need you to understand something, I continue. When I returned home years ago, you saw it as a failure. When I cared for grandmother, you saw it as wasted potential. When I inherited her home, you saw it as something to control. Mom starts to interrupt, but I raise my hand gently. I'm not angry anymore, I say, surprising myself with the truth of it. But I won't pretend those years of dismissal didn't happen. Remember when I tried to discuss my first property at Thanksgiving 4 years ago? You changed the subject to Wyatt's promotion. When I mentioned real estate classes, you suggested I focus on finding someone instead. The memory of their exchanged glances that day still stings, but the pain has dulled to a distant throb rather than an open wound. We were concerned, Dad says, his voice softer than usual. The market was unstable. You were embarrassed. I corrected him without heat. And that's okay. I don't need your approval anymore. I love you both, but my life and my business decisions aren't up for family vote. Mom's hand trembles as she reaches for her water glass. Then why agree to meet us? Because you're still my parents. I'm setting boundaries, not cutting ties. Dad straightens his silverware, buying time. What exactly does that mean, practically speaking? It means I'll join family gatherings where I'm treated as an equal adult. It means questions about my business come from genuine interest, not judgment. It means accepting that my path is different but not lesser than what you imagined for me. The waiter appears to take our orders and we pause. I request the eggplant parmesan, suddenly hungry in a way I haven't been during family meals in years. After he leaves, Dad attempts a different approach. The country club is hosting a business mixer next month. Perhaps you could attend as our guest. Make some connections? Before I can respond, I spot Wyatt entering the restaurant, scanning tables until he sees us. I'd texted him earlier my own strategic move. I invited Wyatt to join us, I say as he approaches. The surprise on my parents' faces is genuine. Our last family gathering had ended with Wyatt storming out after learning about my ownership of his office building. Hope I'm not interrupting, Wyatt says, pulling up a chair. His tie is loosened, his usual polish slightly dimmed after weeks of job searching. Perfect timing, I say, reaching into my bag. Mom and Dad were just leaving. Their confusion is palpable, but we haven't even ordered, Mom protests. I need to speak with Wyatt privately, I explain. We can continue our conversation this weekend, at my house, as family, not as negotiators. After reluctant goodbyes and Mom's lingering backward glance, they leave. The tension at the table dissipates like fog burning off in the morning sun. I slide a manila folder across the table to Wyatt, watching his face as he opens it. Head of Legal Strategy at Brennan Revival Holdings, he reads, eyebrows rising. This is a job offer? The base salary is less than you're used to. I say, pointing to the compensation details, but there's real equity, not a handout, Wyatt, a position you'll earn through actual work. His fingers trace the company logo in oak leaf, grandmother's favorite. Why would you do this, after everything? Because you're good at what you do, because beneath the competition you understand property law, because we're still family even when it's complicated. His hand shakes slightly as he signs the offer letter without argument, a first in our adult relationship. I've been jealous. He admits the words clearly difficult for him. For years I convinced myself I was concerned about your choices. Truth is, I envied how easily you walked away from expectations. It wasn't easy, I corrected him. Just necessary. I need to ask, will Mom and Dad really be at your house this weekend? I nod, filling him in on my plan as our meals arrive. For the first time in years, we talked without keeping score about grandmother, about property values in the historic district, about his fiancée's family pressure. Real conversation. No pretense, no competition. When I describe the revised lease agreement I've prepared for our parents, a bit different from the month ago, his eyes widen. You're really going to make them sign a rental agreement for their family home? For my home, I corrected him gently. And yes, some boundaries need paperwork. He raises his water glass in a toast. To the sister I underestimated. I clink my glass against his. To second chances, earned, not given. I pour coffee into grandmother's Wedgwood cups, the familiar blue flowers dancing along the rim. Sunlight streams through the leaded glass windows, catching the silver serving tray where it's always sat for Sunday dinners. 6 months can change everything and nothing at all. This roast is excellent, Dad says, accepting the cup with a nod that contains more respect than 30 years of previous interactions. His burgundy sweater matches the season, but the country club insignia is noticeably absent. Lottie recommended the local roaster. I settle into grandmother's chair at the head of the table, a position that once would have seemed impossible. They source directly from farmers. Mom straightens the linen napkin in her lap. I visited that shop yesterday. Margaret from the garden club mentioned their pastries. The conversation flows with new rhythms. Words once bitten back now spoken freely. Names once dismissed now referenced with interest. Wyatt arrives last, kissing my cheek before taking his seat. Sorry I'm late. The Henderson contract needed final revisions. You're making good progress with them, I say, watching his face brighten with earned pride rather than entitlement. The doorbell chimes. That'll be Lottie, I announce, rising to welcome her. Dad stands too, something he never would have done 6 months ago for someone he once classified as the help. The subtle shift speaks volumes. Lottie enters wearing a coral dress that complements her silver hair. She carries a small bouquet of fresh-cut flowers from her garden. These tables have turned quite nicely, she whispers as I hug her. Her knowing eyes hold decades of wisdom about families and their complicated dances. We settled around the dining table, the same polished oak surface where they once tried to take my home. Now they pay rent with both money and respect, the lease agreement framed by relationships rebuilding brick by brick. Douglas, Lottie addresses my father directly. Your suggestion about the Miller Street property was spot on. The Historical Commission approved our proposal yesterday. Dad straightens, pleased. The original moldings were worth preserving. I noticed similar features in the Westfield building downtown. The conversation turns to business naturally, without the forced exclusion of previous years. Mom asks thoughtful questions about the neighborhood revival project. Wyatt outlines the legal strategy he's developing to protect historic properties from developers. I never thought I'd enjoy corporate law outside the big firms, he admits, helping himself to more potatoes. But there's something satisfying about building something with real community impact. You always had good instincts, I told him. You just needed the right application. The grandfather clock chimes in the hallway, marking time that now flows forward instead of stagnating in old patterns. I always knew you'd build something lasting, Callie. Lottie says during a lull in conversation. You see value where others see only surfaces. Her words bridge generations of women who understood worth beyond society's narrow measures. Later, as spring sunshine warms the garden, I stand alone at the window watching them. Mom and Lottie discussing perennial borders. Dad and Wyatt examine the repaired porch railing. Family reforming around truth instead of pretense. Tomorrow I'll mentor 3 young women interested in real estate investment. Next week we'll close on the Thompson building, another historic property saved from demolition. The business grows alongside healing relationships. I touch grandmother's watch on my wrist, feeling her presence in every corner of this house she entrusted to me. The journey from invisible daughter to respected businesswoman required no validation but my own. Some walls need not be torn down but simply remodeled, with the original foundation kept intact. Some keys unlock more than doors. The aroma of pot roast filled the dining room of the Pierce family home in Columbus, Ohio, mingling with the scent of fresh rolls and the underlying tension that always accompanied Sunday dinners. I methodically arranged the silverware at each place setting, careful to align the forks just so, while my younger sister Madison's voice carried from the living room. I'm up to 20,000 followers now, she announced, waving her phone in the air as if it were Olympic gold. The sponsorship offers are rolling in. I caught Dad's proud nod from the corner of my eye. Mom beamed at her, tucking a strand of her perfectly styled hair behind her ear. That's wonderful, sweetie, Mom said. Your hard work is really paying off. I set the last knife in place and slipped into my chair, invisible as always. 27 years old, and still setting the table like I was 12. Still living in my childhood bedroom while Madison, at 25, commanded the spotlight with her social media career. Mom and Dad exchanged a look across the table, the kind parents share when they've rehearsed a conversation. Mom cleared her throat, her voice taking on that honeyed tone she used when she wanted something. Alexandra, honey, she began, passing the mashed potatoes my way. We need to discuss your room. I paused, fork hovering above my plate. Madison needs it for her studio, Mom continued, smiling as if she'd just offered me a gift instead of an eviction notice. The lighting is better than in her room, and she needs more space for her equipment. Before I could respond, Dad slammed his fist on the table, making the water glasses jump. Either give it up, or get out of this house, he snapped, all pretense of discussion evaporating. It's time you found your own place anyway. Madison smirked from across the table, twirling a strand of blonde hair around her finger. It's not like you need space to shuffle papers, she said with a dismissive shrug. The table fell silent. Everyone watched me, waiting for tears or protest. I cut a piece of pot roast and placed it in my mouth, chewing slowly. My expression revealed nothing as I swallowed. Inside my head, a different scene played out. My 10 by 1 2-bedroom upstairs was more than just a sleeping space. It was my sanctuary, my office, the command center of a life they knew nothing about. Finance books lined the shelves I'd installed myself. A modest desk held my computer, a computer whose screen frequently displayed an investment portfolio worth millions. While they'd been watching Madison perform in talent shows and school plays, I'd been working. Weekend jobs through high school, online courses in financial management during college, building my consulting business client by client, dollar by dollar. I looked down at my phone beneath the table, swiping past the apartment listings I'd been browsing all week. I'd been planning my escape for years, saving and investing while they thought I was just job hunting between temp positions. My mind flashed back to when I was 14. I could still feel the weight of the shoebox in my hands as I counted out $780 in crumpled bills, weekend shifts at the local diner, tips included, enough for the laptop I needed. Alexandra, Mom had said that afternoon, standing in my doorway with that same sweet smile. Madison needs video equipment for her school project, the one that might get her noticed by that arts program. I remembered how Dad had taken the box from my hands without asking, how they'd both spoken over my protests. Your sister needs this for her future, Dad had said firmly. I remembered locking myself in the bathroom afterward, the cold tile against my knees as I sobbed silently, promising myself I would never depend on them again. That was the day I understood my place in this family, the invisible child whose achievements would always be dismissed as that spreadsheet hobby. 13 years later, nothing had changed. Except me. I placed my napkin beside my plate and stood up, my chair sliding back without a sound. I understand, I said, my voice steady. I'll have an answer by next Sunday. Madison's mouth opened slightly, confusion replacing her smugness. Mom and Dad exchanged glances. This wasn't the reaction they'd expected. They wanted tears, begging, the Alexandra who would eventually give in. From the end of the table, my younger brother Eli watched me with an unexpected expression, not amusement at my predicament, but something that looked almost like concern. At 18, he was starting to see the family dynamics with clearer eyes. Alexandra, Mom began, but I was already walking toward the stairs, my posture straight, my steps measured. We can discuss the details later, I said over my shoulder. Madison, make a list of what changes you want to make to the room. I'll need to know what to prepare for. Behind me, their voices resumed, already discussing paint colors and lighting setups for Madison's new studio. They had already forgotten I was leaving the room, just as they had always forgotten I was in it. In the privacy of my bedroom, I closed the door and took out my phone. I scrolled to a contact I'd added months ago but never called. Until now. Marjorie Klein, a professional voice answered on the second ring. I took a breath, feeling the weight of years lifting from my shoulders. Marjorie, this is Alexandra Pierce, I said, looking out my window at the house across the street, the one with the for sale sign that had caught my eye weeks ago. I'm ready to make that move we discussed. The next morning, Dad's laptop sits unguarded on the kitchen counter, his email open like a treasure map. I glance over my shoulder, the house empty, except for the hum of the dishwasher. My fingers hover over the keyboard. This isn't like me, this intrusion into someone else's digital space. But then again, neither was their ultimatum about my room. I click on a folder labeled Family Finances, and the screen fills with spreadsheets that make my stomach clench. Credit card statements stretch endlessly, a digital tapestry of debt I never knew existed. $180,000. The number blinks at me from the bottom of the screen. $180,000. My parents have racked up supporting Madison's influencer career. Line after line tells the story. Camera equipment, lighting rigs, professional editing software. A $3,000 charge from last month for a weekend workshop with some social media guru in Chicago. All labeled as business expenses in Dad's meticulous notes. I dig deeper, finding an email thread between my parents discussing a second mortgage. The house I grew up in, leveraged for Madison's Instagram fantasy. A new message notification pops up Madison to her talent agency. I shouldn't open it. I do anyway. I'm projecting to hit 50 Kelvin's followers by next month, she wrote. I check her actual numbers on a dashboard Dad has bookmarked. 19,723. Less than half what she's claiming. The front door rattles. I close the laptop and drift toward the stairs, heart hammering against my ribs. Mom walks in with grocery bags, barely glancing my way. Alexandra? She calls as I reach the landing. Don't forget Sunday's deadline. Madison's been making plans for that room for weeks. I pause, not turning around. My financial paperwork. We'll box it all up for you? Mom interrupts, the false sweetness in her voice making my teeth ache. Though some of it might accidentally get thrown away during cleaning. You know how that happens. Her casual threat settles over me like a winter chill. 7 days. That's all I have before they expect me to surrender my space and with it, any proof of the life I've built. I grab my laptop and drive to Crimson Cup Coffee, my unofficial second office. The barista nods in recognition as I order my usual black coffee, no room. Settled in my corner booth, I open my own financial dashboard. The numbers glow back at me. $2.7 million in company earnings this fiscal year. 3 full-time employees. Clients across 4 countries. I take a long sip of coffee, letting the bitter warmth fill me. A quiet confidence replaces the lifelong doubt that's shadowed me since childhood. They never saw me. Maybe they never will. My phone buzzes with a text from Marjorie Klein, the realtor. Found 3 properties matching your criteria. Available to view this afternoon? I stare at the message, a plan crystallizing in my mind. This isn't just about finding somewhere to live anymore. I won't just leave, I whisper to my screen. I'll make a statement they can't ignore. Though, I text Marjorie back. Yes, looking for something specific, preferably visible from my parents' house. Her response is almost immediate. I have just the place. Meet at 3 p.m.? I smile for the first time in days. Perfect. 3 hours later, Marjorie's sleek car pulls up to a 2-story colonial directly across from my parents' house. The for sale sign I'd been eyeing for weeks stands in the front yard. This is exactly what I want. I tell Marjorie as we walk up the stone path. Something they'll see every single day. Marjorie's professional veneer cracks slightly, her eyebrow raising. Interesting choice of words, she says, unlocking the door. Most clients talk about what they want to see, not what they want others to see. Before I can respond, someone calls my name from the sidewalk. Chloe Baxter waves, crossing the street with a folder tucked under her arm. Her auburn hair catches the afternoon sun as she navigates around a parked car. I brought those property listings you asked about, she says, climbing the steps to join us. But I see Marjorie's already got you covered. Chloe has believed in me since college, when I showed her my business plan scrawled on coffee shop napkins. While everyone else saw pipe dreams, she saw potential. Alexandra's financials have been pre-approved. Marjorie explains as we tour the house. The sellers are motivated. We could fast-track this if you're serious. The master bedroom overlooks my parents' house. I stand at the window, imagining waking up to this view every morning, a daily reminder of what I've built and what they failed to see. My bank manager was impressed with your statements. Marjorie continues, making notes on her tablet. Not many 27-year-olds qualify for a mortgage this size without cosigners. My phone buzzes again. A text from Eli. Whatever you're planning, you deserve better than this. I stare at his message, surprised. When did my little brother start noticing what was happening in our house? When did he start taking my side? I'll take it, I tell Marjorie, tucking my phone away. How quickly can we close? Wednesday, if we push. Her eyes widen slightly. That's incredibly fast. Are you sure? Absolutely, I say, already calculating the down payment. I'll transfer the funds tonight. Later, sitting at the kitchen table while my parents and Madison discuss her brand strategy, I sign the preliminary papers Marjorie emailed over. My parents still think I'm job hunting, unaware that their invisible daughter is about to become their highly visible neighbor. The money transfers with a single click, a substantial down payment that represents years of work they never bothered to ask about. The bittersweet realization settles over me. I'm buying a home but losing my family. Or maybe I lost them years ago, and I'm only now accepting it. Pride replaces the hollow ache. I built this success without their knowledge or support, without their belief. Maybe that makes it more mine than anything else could. As Madison laughs about her latest sponsorship prospect, a fleeting doubt crosses my mind. Is this revenge or freedom? Perhaps it's both. The morning sun filtered through my curtains as I opened my eyes to the sound of rustling in my room. Mom stood by my bookshelf, a garbage bag in one hand, and several of my finance folders in the other. What are you doing? I asked, sitting up quickly. Just cleaning, sweetie, she said, that honeyed tone coating her words. These old papers were gathering dust. I slid out of bed and crossed the room in 3 steps, taking the folders from her hands. These are important documents. Oh, Alexandra, she laughed lightly. You and your paperwork. Madison needs this space to be pristine for her equipment. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A notification from Madison's Instagram, a family photo from last Christmas, her caption reading, "Making room for my dream studio. So blessed to have supportive parents. Influencer life. Dream coming true." I bit the inside of my cheek, tasting copper. 63 likes already, most from people who'd never set foot in our house. I thought we agreed Sunday was moving day, I said, carefully returning the folders to their proper place on the shelf. Mom sighed, tying the garbage bag. Plans change. Madison's equipment arrives Wednesday now, not Sunday. She patted my shoulder. You're always so adaptable, honey. That's what I love about you. Adaptable, the word they used when they meant invisible. Downstairs, Dad sat at the kitchen table, coffee mug in hand, newspaper spread before him. His eyes flicked up as I entered, then back to the sports section. Morning? I said, pouring myself coffee. Some people in this house don't understand sacrifice, he muttered. Ungrateful children taking advantage. The irony burned worse than the coffee. I said nothing as I spread peanut butter on toast, calculating the hours until I could leave this house forever. That evening, relatives gathered around our dining table for Mom's monthly family dinner. Aunt Cheryl passed the green beans while Uncle Jim described his golf game in excruciating detail. I pushed food around my plate, half listening, until Mom tapped her glass with a spoon. We have exciting news, she announced, her smile wide and practiced. Madison has a potential sponsorship with a major cosmetics brand. They're sending professional equipment for her videos. Aunt Cheryl clapped her hands together. That's wonderful. Alexandra's giving up her bedroom for Madison's studio, Mom continued, as if I'd enthusiastically volunteered. Such a supportive sister. All eyes turned to me, expecting the dutiful daughter act. I smiled tightly and raised my water glass. Family supports family, right? Later that night, my phone lit up with a text from Marjorie. Found it. The perfect house. 4 bedrooms, directly across from your parents. Virtual tour tomorrow? A.D. I stared at the message, something like hope unfurling in my chest. I typed back, yes, first thing. The virtual tour revealed high ceilings and hardwood floors, but it was the office that stopped my breath. A spacious room with built-in bookshelves and a bay window overlooking my parents' front door. I could sit at my desk and watch them come and go, while they'd never see me working. What do you think? Marjorie asked through the video call. It's perfect, I whispered, unexpected tears blurring my vision. How quickly can we close? Marjorie's face lit up with determination. With your financials and my connections, we can have keys in your hand Wednesday morning. Wednesday, I repeated, thinking of Madison's equipment delivery. The timing wasn't coincidental, it was justice. The signing happened Tuesday afternoon, papers spread across a mahogany table in Marjorie's office. My hand trembled slightly as I signed the final document, a mixture of terror and triumph coursing through me. Alexandra, Marjorie said as she gathered the papers, her voice unusually soft. In 20 years of real estate, I've never seen someone your age this prepared. I blinked rapidly, unprepared for the warmth that spread through my chest at her words. Back home, I was carefully organizing client files when my bedroom door swung open without a knock. Madison strode in, measuring tape in hand, eyes already scanning my walls. Can I help you with something? I asked, not looking up from my desk, just measuring for my lighting setup. She said, stretching the tape across one wall. This space is barely adequate, but I'll make it work. I continued typing, my keystrokes deliberately calm. I see. My brand is on the verge of $1 million valuation. She continued, pacing the perimeter of my room. I need this space more than you do. It's not like you're doing anything important with it. If she only knew the irony, the financial empire I'd built while she collected followers and free makeup samples. We'll see what happens Sunday, I said, saving my document. Madison laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. Mom and Dad already decided. You don't have a choice. I looked up then, meeting her eyes directly. A small, secretive smile curved my lips. Everyone has choices. Some just take longer to make them. Confusion flickered across her face before she rolled her eyes and left, the door banging shut behind her. That night, Chloe arrived with empty boxes after my family left for their weekly movie night. Operation Independence is a go, she whispered, pulling packing tape from her purse. I've got the essentials list. I hugged her tightly. Thank you. We worked quickly, packing my most important possessions while leaving enough to maintain the illusion I was still living there. My college friends arrived an hour later with more boxes and quiet determination. Eli texted. Chloe said, taping another box. Your parents decided to get ice cream. He'll stall them. My brother's unexpected alliance warmed something in me that had been cold for years. Marjorie called past midnight with confirmation. We're set for 9 a.m. closing. The movers will arrive at your parents' house at 10, while everyone's at work. Wednesday morning dawned clear and bright. I stood on the sidewalk watching Marjorie's car approach, keys dangling from her fingers as she stepped out. "Congratulations, homeowner," she said, pressing the keys into my palm. The movers arrived precisely at 10, efficient and discreet. I directed them through my childhood home, pointing out what to take and what to leave. My desk, my books, my clothes, the physical manifestations of a life kept hidden for years. By noon, I stood in my new master bedroom, watching the movers assemble my bed frame. The window offered a perfect view of my parents' house, the bedroom that had been mine for 27 years now visible from across the street. "Where do you want this desk, ma'am?" one of the movers asked, gesturing to my workstation. "In the office," I said, positioned to face the front window. Chloe arrived with lunch as the movers finished, her eyes wide as she explored my new home. "This is gorgeous, Alex. And huge." We sat on the floor of my new living room, eating sandwiches amid half-unpacked boxes. "Are you doing this for revenge?" she asked quietly, making them see what they missed. I considered her question, watching sunlight pattern the hardwood floors. "This isn't about revenge," I said finally. "It's about becoming visible." That evening, I arranged my important papers in a leather portfolio folder: deed, financial statements, company information, evidence of the life I'd built while they weren't looking. Standing before my bathroom mirror, I practiced my expression, ensuring no anger or hurt showed through. Sunday's revelation needed to be delivered with calm confidence, not emotional outbursts. I selected my outfit for Sunday's appearance: a tailored navy blazer, cream silk blouse, and my grandmother's pearl earrings. Professional but familiar, the Alexandra they knew, but finally seen clearly. As the last box was unpacked, I returned briefly to my parents' house. In my stripped bedroom, I placed my childhood teddy bear against the pillow, the only personal item remaining. A silent goodbye to the girl who had lived in the shadows. Saturday night, I stood at my new bedroom window, watching lights glow across the street. Madison's car pulled up, friends spilling out laughing. Through the upstairs window, I could see them touring my empty room, Madison gesturing expansively about her plans. My phone buzzed with a text from Eli. "They think you're staying with Chloe. What are you really doing?" I smiled, typing back, "Come to coffee tomorrow. You'll want to see this." Placing my phone down, I walked through my silent house, fingertips trailing along walls that belonged entirely to me. On the entry table, I positioned the deed folder precisely in the center. "Tomorrow," I whispered to the empty house, "they'll finally see me." Sunday morning arrives with a clarity I haven't felt in years. I adjust my blazer, charcoal gray, tailored perfectly as I cross the street toward my parents' house. The weight of the deed folder in my hand feels substantial, grounding. Through the front window, I can see them gathered around the kitchen table, my former prison, now just a stage for what comes next. I knock twice, sharp and confident. Mom answers, her smile faltering when she sees my professional attire. "Alexandra? We weren't expecting you so early." Her eyes dart to the street behind me, searching for Chloe's car. "Where did you park?" "I walked," I say simply, stepping past her into the foyer. The kitchen falls silent as I enter. Dad looks up from his newspaper, Madison from her phone. Only Eli offers a genuine, "Good morning." I pour myself coffee from the pot on the counter, an action I've performed thousands of times in this house. Today it feels different, a choice rather than an obligation. "I thought you'd be bringing your things," Madison says, her tone sweet but eyes calculating. "I've already picked out paint samples for the walls, thinking of a blush pink with gold accents for my backdrop wall." Madison says, I settle into my usual chair, crossing my legs casually. "That sounds nice." Madison launches into detailed renovation plans, describing lighting setups and equipment placement. I sip my coffee, nodding at appropriate intervals while watching Dad's impatience build. The timing has to be perfect. "When are you moving your things?" Dad finally interrupts, folding his newspaper with a crisp snap. The room stills, all eyes on me. This is the moment I've rehearsed in my mind 100 times. "I already did," I reply, my voice steady. Wednesday was my first day, actually. Mom's coffee cup clinks against its saucer. "Staying with Chloe isn't a real solution, Alexandra. You need to think about this rationally." Dad laughs, the sound devoid of humor. You'll be back when you can't afford rent. The real world is expensive, especially for someone with your employment history. Employ. 2-1. Madison reaches across the table, patting my hand with artificial concern. Don't be dramatic just because you're jealous of my success. We all have our paths, even if yours is taking longer to develop. They present a united front, so confident in their assumptions. But for the first time, I notice a flicker of unease in Mom's eyes as I remain unruffled by their dismissals. Thank you all for your concern, I say, placing the folder on the coffee table with deliberate slowness. But I'm not renting. I bought a house. The statement hangs in the air, rearranging the molecules between us. I let the silence stretch, savoring the shifting expressions across their faces: confusion, disbelief, the first edge of alarm. The one across the street, actually. I turn slightly in my chair, pointing through the front window at my new home, 3 stories of brick and character directly in their line of sight. Mom's coffee cup slips from her fingers, splashing brown liquid across the white tablecloth. Dad's mouth opens and closes without sound. Madison sits frozen, her Instagram post forgotten mid-type. How could you afford that? Eli asks, breaking the stunned silence. There's no judgment in his voice, only genuine amazement. I straighten my shoulders, embracing the truth I've hidden for years. I own a financial consulting business. A what? Dad's voice cracks. A financial consulting firm. We manage portfolios and investment strategies for clients across the country. I keep my tone, matter of fact, as if discussing the weather. We crossed $2.7 million in revenue last quarter. Years of dismissal hang in the balance as I let them process this information. Eli's eyes widen, respect dawning in his expression. Mom recovers first, her smile tight. It's probably just a starter home with a small mortgage. That neighborhood has become quite affordable lately. I slide financial statements across the table. I paid 60% down. The rest is financed at 2.8%. Madison's phone slips from her hand, clattering onto her plate. You've been lying about your job. Dad's face reddens as he slams his palm against the table. No, I correct him calmly. You've been assuming I was unsuccessful. You never actually asked what I do. The distinction lands like a physical blow. Dad's mouth snaps shut. Mom stands abruptly, grabbing her phone. I need to call Aunt Patricia. This impulsive decision. Go ahead, I say, sipping my coffee. She already knows. She's coming to my housewarming party next weekend. Within an hour, the family machinery activates its defense systems. Mom calls 3 relatives, her voice growing increasingly strained as their responses prove disappointingly supportive of my brave new chapter. Madison posts a vague story about toxic family drama that garners minimal engagement compared to her usual content. Through the window, I watch Mr. Johnson from next door slow his morning walk to admire the antique writing desk being carried into my front door by professional movers. The Neighborhood Whisper Network has already activated Alexandra Pierce, successful businesswoman moving into the Henderson property. The doorbell rings, and Chloe enters with a potted fiddle leaf fig and a bottle of champagne. Housewarming gift for the new homeowner, she announces, ignoring the tension thickening the air. Thank you, I say, accepting both with genuine warmth. The contrast between her authentic support and my family's calculated reactions couldn't be clearer. Eli stands, glancing between our parents and me. Can I see your new place, Alex? The request represents more than curiosity, it's the first crack in the family's united front. His willingness to cross the street with me carries weight beyond the physical journey. Of course, I say, gathering my things. Anytime. As we prepare to leave, Dad clears his throat. We should discuss your future visits. Sunday dinners are a family tradition. I'm still family, I interrupt gently, just living across the street instead of upstairs. Mom's smile doesn't reach her eyes. Of course you are. We're just trying to understand this sudden change. Not sudden, I correct her. Just finally visible. Through the window, I notice Marjorie's car pulling up to the corner market where Mom buys her weekly groceries, right on schedule. By afternoon, the entire neighborhood will know the property value of my new home and the substantial down payment I made. As I walk toward the door with Eli and Chloe, a delivery van stops in front of my house. The driver carries an elaborate arrangement of flowers to my porch, A congratulatory gift from my business partners, strategically timed and perfectly visible from my parents' front window. I turned back once before leaving, taking in the tableau of my stunned family. Madison frantically checking her phone as notifications about an exposé on fake followers flood her screen. Mom and Dad exchanging worried glances, the unpaid second mortgage application sitting in Dad's email drafts suddenly feeling more precarious. Success is often built in quiet rooms, I say softly, while others are performing. The door closes behind us with a gentle click, separating past from future with half an inch of polished oak. Across the street, my house, my actual home, stands waiting, windows gleaming in the morning Sunday. 2 weeks later, the doorbell chimes through my quiet home, interrupting my morning coffee ritual. Through the peephole, I spot my mother's perfectly coiffed hair and the edge of what appears to be a pie dish. I take a deep breath, straighten my shoulders, and open the door with a neutral expression. Alexandra, sweetheart. Mom holds up a perfectly golden-crusted apple pie, steam still rising from the lattice top. I made your favorite. We should talk. I step aside, allowing her into the entryway of my new home. Her eyes dart around, taking in the tasteful furnishings, the spacious layout, the unmistakable signs of success she never bothered to notice before. This is quite something you've done here, she says, placing the pie on my kitchen counter. Her hands flutter to her pearl necklace, adjusting it unnecessarily. Your father and I always believed in you, you know. I pour her a cup of coffee without responding. The silence stretches between us. Madison's having a hard time with sponsors, she finally says, staring into her cup rather than meeting my eyes. Some issue with her follower count. Technical things I don't understand. I see, I reply, keeping my voice even. Family supports family, Alexandra. Mom reaches across the counter to touch my hand. I don't pull away, but I don't reciprocate either. We've always been there for each other, haven't we? Later that afternoon, Dad makes his approach. He catches me retrieving mail from my box, his timing too perfect to be coincidental. Your mother misses you, he says without preamble. We all do. We should put this behind us and move forward as a family. I nod politely, sorting through envelopes. I'm open to that possibility, Dad. His relief is palpable but premature. That evening, my phone lights up with a barrage of texts from Madison. You're destroying this family, Mom cried all afternoon. Everyone thinks you're so selfish. After everything they did for you. I placed the phone face down on my coffee table and returned to reviewing client portfolios. The messages continue to arrive, each vibration less affecting than the last. The next morning, Mom calls to inform me that Aunt Patricia asked about my absence at Sunday dinner. Everyone's concerned about the family image, she says. People are talking. Dad follows up with a voicemail suggesting my business success seems awfully sudden and questioning whether I've gotten involved with something questionable. The final salvo comes in the form of a formal dinner invitation, delivered by hand to my mailbox. Elegant script on cream cardstock requests my presence at the family home tomorrow evening at 7. To reconcile our differences, it reads. And the postscript, in Mom's handwriting, after all we've done for you growing up. Alone that night, doubt creeps in during the quiet hours. Old patterns of guilt surface like well-worn paths in my mind. Perhaps I am being too harsh. Perhaps there is some middle ground where I can maintain both peace and dignity. The next morning, Chloe arrives with bagels and brutal honesty. Remember the laptop money? She asks, spreading cream cheese with unnecessary force. $800 you saved from diner shifts, and they took it for Madison's camera equipment? I wince at the memory. That was 13 years ago, I say, though the sting feels fresh. Patterns don't change unless people do, Chloe replies. After she leaves, I pull out the journals I've kept since childhood. Page after page documents the same cycle, my achievements minimized, my needs secondary, my resources commandeered for Madison's dreams. The realization settles into me with surprising calm. Their love was always conditional. Mine doesn't have to be. I arrive at my parents' house at precisely 7 the next evening. The table is set with the good china. Madison sulks at her place setting while Mom fusses with flower arrangements and Dad pours wine with too careful precision. Alexandra, Mom exclaims with excessive brightness. You came. I take my seat, my posture relaxed but dignified. The difference is immediately apparent. I'm not the daughter desperately seeking approval. I'm a successful woman who has chosen to be here on my terms. Madison attempts several barbs throughout the salad course. Not everyone can buy their way into feeling important, she mutters. I meet her gaze steadily. You're right. Some people have to earn it. Her fork clatters against her plate. When the main course is served, Dad clears his throat meaningfully. The moment for reconciliation has apparently arrived, according to their schedule. I needed to build my own life, I say before they can begin their prepared speeches. You needed me to remain invisible. Those two things weren't compatible. Mom's hand freezes midway to her water glass. Alexandra, we never. I'm open to a relationship, I continue calmly, but not one based on what you can take from me. The silence that follows is profound. What does that mean exactly? Dad finally asks, his tone careful. I explain, with the precision of someone who has prepared thoroughly, how I built my business over years of work, how I paid for my education through scholarships and side jobs, how I attempted, repeatedly, to share my successes, only to have them dismissed or ignored. That spreadsheet hobby, I quote back to them, is now worth millions. Madison's face contorts with something between rage and envy. For the first time, she sees the difference between her bought followers and my earned success. The knowledge visibly burns. Mom attempts to redirect. Speaking of your business success, Alexandra, perhaps you could help with family finances, just until Madison gets back on her feet. The trap is sprung, but not as she intended. From my purse, I remove a folder containing documentation of every instance they took from me, from the laptop savings to college fund withdrawals for Madison's headshots. Dad begins to protest, but his words die as I show him his own signature on a withdrawal slip from my college account. Madison launches into a tantrum about fairness and family loyalty that exposes her entitlement more clearly than any argument I could make. Through it all, I remain composed. The family narrative collapses around us, but I do not gloat or rage. There's no satisfaction in watching them confront reality, only the quiet relief of finally being seen. I'm willing to have a relationship based on mutual respect, I say when the storm subsides. That includes financial boundaries. I won't support anyone without accountability. I turn to Madison. You can apologize genuinely and we can build something new, or you can maintain your position and we'll maintain our distance. My parents sit stunned, facing consequences perhaps for the first time. You gave me an ultimatum about my room, I say, rising from the table. I chose freedom. I leave without tears or anger, walking the short distance across the street to my own home. From my front porch, the family house is clearly visible, windows glowing with artificial warmth. Eli appears at his upstairs window. I raise my hand in a small wave, an offering of connection separate from our parents. He returns the gesture, his expression thoughtful. One by one, the lights in my parents' house go dark as I stand on my porch. My own home remains illuminated, warm with the light of independence. I hear through neighborhood whispers that Madison's career collapse has accelerated. Her fake follower scheme exposed, sponsorships withdrawn, her influencer dreams crumbling. Meanwhile, my parents face the prospect of financial ruin, their resources depleted by years of supporting Madison's illusions. I watch the for sale sign being hammered into their lawn the following week, feeling neither victory nor remorse, only the quiet certainty that some lessons come at a higher price than others. The morning sun streamed through my kitchen window, casting golden light across the countertop. 6 months had passed since that Sunday dinner ultimatum, and what once felt like an act of defiance now simply felt like home. I cradled my coffee mug and stepped onto the front porch, breathing in the crisp autumn air. My house, not my parents' house, not my childhood bedroom, but my house had transformed from an empty statement into a true sanctuary. The living room walls, once bare, now displayed framed awards from the Columbus Business Association, including last month's Emerging Entrepreneur Honor. My consulting firm had grown to 5 employees, all working remotely but gathering monthly in my converted dining room for strategy sessions. Across the street, the curtains remained drawn at my parents' house. The for sale sign had appeared weeks ago, shortly after Madison's final sponsored post announced her career transition into entry-level marketing. I took another sip of coffee, surprised by how little satisfaction I felt at their financial troubles. The revenge fantasy had burned itself out, leaving something quieter and more valuable in its place. "Morning, Alexandra." "Mrs." Henderson called from her driveway next door. "Those mums on your steps are gorgeous." I waved back, still unused to being visible in this neighborhood where I'd been a shadow for 27 years. Inside, I checked my watch 3 hours until the housewarming party. The irony wasn't lost on me that the dining table where my parents had delivered their ultimatum now stood in my home, repurposed for celebration instead of control. I'd bought it at their hastily organized estate sale, paying twice its value while Madison glared from the porch. The doorbell rang, and Eli stood on my doorstep holding a potted plant. "You're early," I said, stepping aside to let him in. "Thought you might need help setting up." He set the plant down, hands in pockets. At 19, his shoulders had straightened, his voice deepened. Community college had been good for him. "Place looks amazing." "Thanks for coming." I squeezed his arm. Our relationship had been the unexpected gift in all this, the slow construction of a real sibling bond, built on mutual respect rather than shared childhood wounds. "Remember when Dad asked where you saw yourself in 5 years?" Eli asked, arranging chairs around the living room. "At that dinner?" I nodded, unpacking the catering delivery. "Where do you see yourself now?" he asked. The question landed differently this time. Before, it had been a challenge, a demand for justification. Now it felt like genuine curiosity. "Building something that matters," I said. "Not just the business, but a life where I don't need anyone's approval to know my worth." Last week, I'd found my childhood journal while unpacking the final box of belongings. On the last page, I'd written, "The room they wanted to take became the foundation for the life I built." The words felt like a bridge between past and future, acknowledging the pain without letting it define me. By noon, my house filled with voices. Chloe arrived first, throwing her arms around me. "To building your own house, literally and figuratively," she toasted, raising her glass. Marjorie Klein came next, her realtor's portfolio tucked away, attending now as a friend. My business partners followed, bringing clients who'd become allies. The room buzzed with conversations about future projects and expansion plans. Between conversations, I slipped into my office to finalize the scholarship paperwork, a fund for business students from challenging family backgrounds. Yesterday, I'd mentored a young woman whose father had belittled her career ambitions, watching recognition dawn in her eyes when I shared my story. "Your worth isn't determined by those who can't see it," I'd told her. I helped Eli submit his engineering program application last week, his talent for numbers finally finding direction after years in Madison's shadow. Evening found me watering plants on the front porch as Madison's small U-Haul pulled up across the street. She was moving to an apartment downtown, smaller than she'd planned, but better than nothing. Our parents loaded the last of their belongings into their sedan. The house emptied before the bank foreclosure. I raised my hand in a small wave as they glanced my way. Not forgiveness, exactly, but acknowledgement. They had told me to give up my room, so I built a company inside it and bought a home across the street. That night I stood in my bedroom doorway, surveying the space that was undeniably mine. No one could take it. No one could diminish it. My business continued to grow, creating opportunities not just for me but for others. The relationship with my parents remained distant, with boundaries firmly in place, though perhaps someday healing might be possible if they changed. I slipped between cool sheets in the master bedroom, watching moonlight pattern the ceiling. For the first time in my life, I slept without wondering if I was enough. Have you ever had to choose between pleasing family and standing up for yourself? Alexandra learned that sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is setting boundaries. What would you have done in her situation? Share your thoughts below.